Welcome back to the Chad HT Show, News Talk 95.1 FM and 790 AM KFYO. Thank you for tuning in today. Join me in studio right now. Always enjoy it when we get to visit with Matt Rose with Lubbock Power and Light. Matt, welcome back. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So you texted me last week.
Yeah.
And after I was talking about the smart meters, I had the smart meter guy came by and installed the smart meter at the house. And, we were having a little bit of fun going, okay, does this mean now that I can tweet at LPNL and turn on the AC? No, y'all can't do that.
Yet, yeah.
No, not yet. Hey, there you go. Maybe soon. So tell us about first. I know there's a story that KMAC has done today about water meters. We'll get to that here in a second. What is the rollout and how is it progressing right now as far as electric meters and turning those into smart meters?
Sure. Yeah, there was a story last night on KMAC about on the water side of the house, the water department is beginning the deployment of their water advanced meters across the city. They're trailing behind LPNL electric meters being rolled out by just a couple of weeks. But one of the decisions that was made this past year, we made the decision at LPNL that we were going to move forward with advanced meters, quite a while ago, and then during our budget process last June is when we really kind of finalized it and said we're moving forward. The city's budget process trailing after that, they decided that they're also going to go forward with it. We're using the same contracted installers, but there's a team that does water and there's a team that does electric, and they're just trailing by a couple of weeks. But on the electric side, we've been going for right at about 3 weeks at our full deployment. We've already rolled out several thousand of these, so it's kind of going at a good pace. And we expect that we'll probably have all of the meters switched out in a year's time. And one of the things that's interesting about this project and how we're running it is that typically cities, as they've moved forward with their metering technology, they've done it every few years. Maybe even every 10 years, they've said we're going to move to the next advancement of meter. Here in Lubbock, we never moved off of first base.
Right.
We're still out there reading meters like folks did in the 1980s. So we're making a jump in technology, but we're not jumping ahead of the field. Really, we're just catching up where the rest of the world is. And, right now, if you're South Plains Electric Cooperative, customer of theirs in Southwest Lubbock, you've had these meters for a number of years. Excel outside the city, same thing. So we're really just catching up. But normally when utilities do this, it's about a 2 or 3 year rollout. But we're trying to get these out in the field in about 12 to 15 months. So we're moving at a quick pace. But we're also trying to make sure that we're putting policies in place that, we're not going so fast that they're making errors or that we're moving ahead of customers that don't feel comfortable with it. And of course, I've been out here talking about this quite a bit. So That's kind of why I'm here today. Is I saw your tweet and I thought, I've not been out there in a couple months. This would be a good chance to go out there and talk about this.
And I think also because when they installed it at the house, and something that they did for us is that they left the note on the door that said, hey, we could not get to your meter. Please call, schedule a time.
Oh, good. Yeah.
And, that was easy. That was an easy process. They came out and they installed the meter. For those who are, in the same position I am, where, okay, they switched out the meter. Does anything change as far as we go? Or, does the smart meter change? Does all that kick over once everybody's on smart meters?
No, I mean, the nice thing about this project is once your meter gets switched out, you now have the new technology.
Okay.
And so, for you particularly, this next month, if you have a question about your bill and you call 775-2509 to City of Lubbock Utilities and you say, hey, I'd like for you to talk to me a little bit more about my usage and all of this, they'll have the ability to do it. Because right now if you're still getting manually read, if your meter hadn't been switched out, you get one read a month that's done by a human being. And then it's plugged in the system, and that's all you get. Once you switch over, these things are read automatically numerous times a day, just with a quick, multi-second ping. So you have multiple points of data. And so you can take a look at it. And that's really important because as we go from May to June to July, we always see that every utility sees that your customers are going to use twice to 3 times as much electricity just because it's going from 70 degrees to 100 degrees.
Right.
And your AC unit's using more.
Yeah.
And folks always have questions about that. They say, well, I don't feel like it should have progressed this quickly. Well, now the customer service rep can say, well, let's take a look at this. We see that you started using more electricity on this date that corresponds with the weather. And then we see that now that it's 100 degrees outside, you're using X amount per day. So now this is what your consumption is, and you can kind of take power in your own hands to say, I'm going to cut back. We always have a lot of customers that contact us when they get their first summer bill because it's a shock. And hopefully with this technology going forward, you mitigate that a little bit. I'm out here on this radio station in a lot of places saying, everybody beware, but people are always shocked when they get their first summer bill and they see that consumption go up.
Yeah.
So it's a way for us to work with it. But, right now you've got that capability. Now, we're also switching out the customer information and billing system. And that's not one like meters where it's rolled out house by house. That's one where it's worked on. You go through all of the different steps and then you deploy it. Once that gets rolled out in 2020, then we have the capability of building a customer portal where you can go on and get your own energy profile. You can set usage alerts. You can do those types of things. So we're doing these 2 projects at the same time so that once all the meters in the field and the billing system goes in, we can go out to customers and say, hey, take advantage of this new technology to know more about your usage.
Yeah, you kind of read my mind as what I was going to ask you next about it, and that is that, where, with smart meter or advanced meters, whatever you want to call them.
Right.
In other cities, as they're rolled out, you're able to go in and I guess in real time or close to real time, see what your consumption is, correct?
Correct. Yeah. And that's what the goal is here. We just have to get that new billing system in as well. And that's also about a year's process to install that because really, City Lubbock Utilities, it's all 5 of the city's utilities. And so we have representatives from each one of those departments in there every day right now going through all of the testing and going through all the requirements saying, hey, for solid waste, I need the system to be able to do this, this, and this. And that just takes a bit of time. But, all of this should be completed, both sides rolled out by the end of this next year. And then, like I say, that's when we'll be able to walk out and say, here's some products that you can use that gives a lot more transparency on both sides of the aisle.
Hey, we had someone texting in and a few people asking, does this mean savings with smart meters?
It does. It does. And the reason it means savings is that from you on your end, you get the ability to see more of what your usage is. You can cut down on that usage. Overall, as a system, if we use less electricity, then it costs less for us to purchase the electricity provided to our customers. It also, and this gets kind of into the technical side of things, but it is important, it also allows us to be more efficient with outage management, and it allows us to be more efficient in terms of making investments in the system. Right now, we operate in a system where if it breaks, we go fix it. With this, we can do testing on the system, figure out weak points, and do preventative maintenance, which saves some of the biggest costs that we've got driving right now, what the rates are to our customers, or all of these projects that we're doing out here. This allows us to do it more efficiently.
Yeah.
So I don't want to give the false impression that, by getting the meter, you magically will see everything come down. There's nothing that the meter does.
If you're running at 70 degrees all day long.
70 degrees and your HVAC unit is working at a certain capacity, the amount of electricity it's consuming is the amount of electricity it's consuming.
Yeah.
But what it does is it gives you the ability to have more understanding of when you use the most electricity. You get your own profile and you say, hey, I see from 4 to 7, I use X amount, which is twice as much as I use the rest of the day. What can I do during that period to draw down my usage? And it's important to know that while we went through a few years of those base rate adjustments where we increased our rates in order to pay for, not just this project, but all of these, hundreds of millions of dollars of transmission lines and system rebuilds, we didn't, it's been 2 years since we've raised our base rates. There's not any move to adjust those base rates up anymore in the foreseeable future. Last year, we were able to draw our overall rate down before summer, and looking forward to this summer, it looks like we're going to be able to draw that rate down again. So your rate is now going to be consistent, and it's been going down. But this is the time of year that you're going to use 2 or 3 times what you would use in the winter months, and so your cost is going to go up because you're using more. And one more thing that I'd throw out about that is that over the last 2 years, we've phased out the winter and summer rates for our base rates.
Right.
So now it's all year long, it's the same rate. So going into this summer, if you see your cost of electricity rising, it's solely because you're using more, not because of anything to do with the rates. In fact, so those rates are coming down. But again, these meters give you the ability to have, more vision in that to say, okay, I see where my usage is and I can draw it down.
Yeah, I was about to ask you with the rates. I mean, they may have come up in late 2018, maybe during some of the budget talks. But wasn't there an issue brought up that we're going to start seeing rates come down as these projects are now being paid off? Yes,
and there's we had to when the crew that's running LP&L right now, David McCullough, who's the director, Andy Burcham, who's the assistant director and CFO, Chad Sales, financial manager, all those folks came in. We all came in 2014. And one of the things that we saw when we walked in is that there really had not been any maintenance done to the system in a number of years, and there had been no investments looking to the future. And so we had to embark on a pretty large infrastructure project, and you've started to see the new transmission lines going in around town that'll make will increase reliability. But those things come at a cost. And so that's where we had to, move those rates up. When I walked in, our rates were about 10% below all of our competitors, Spec and Excel and these folks. Now our rates are right even with theirs. If you're a Spec customer and you use 1,000 kWh, it costs you $109. With LP&L, it costs you $110 and change. So we're right now even with everybody else. But we had to do that in order to pay for, about $400 million worth of infrastructure that we're building right now. But that's now fully funded. And so we've started to draw those rates down. And that's what we're looking to do again this summer.
And this, there are some people out there who don't want the smart meters. They don't want advanced meters. If they don't want any part of this, can they opt out?
Yes.
If they opt out, what do they need to do?
Yeah. On the electric side, we do have an opt-out for customers that, for whatever reason, just do not want the new technology. But they do need to contact us and just fill out an opt-out form. It's just as simple as that. It's one form. But there is a fee associated with that, and it's $24.95 a month. And the reason that we have that fee is because moving to this technology, if somebody says, I want a non-standard meter, that means, we have to still manually read that meter. We still have to go manually have a technician go out when it breaks. During outages, we have to have crews that go out specifically. So there's a cost to the rest of the system that needs to be made up. And that $24.95 actually doesn't cover our total cost of service, but it's something where we went through those metrics and we said, let's look at where other folks typically put their opt-out fee, and that's where we positioned it. So it's even with your center points and your Xcel Energies and those types.
Have you had anybody opt out?
A small handful.
Okay.
A small handful. I think the biggest challenge in terms of rolling these out is probably going to be more what you experienced where, by tariff, by law, we have the ability to access the meter in the backyard because especially during an outage, we want to make sure we can get in there and fix the equipment. But when it comes to this, we got to be able to access that meter. And so folks are moving through and they are knocking there, there's notifications, there are knocking on doors. But if somebody's not home, they're going ahead and switching out that meter. But if a gate is locked or there's some reason we can't get to that meter, like in your case, we leave a note, somebody contact us, we double back around and do it. You have to imagine as we go through, there's going to be folks that say, I'm not going to call back or I'm not going to contact them.
Right.
So there's going to be a lot of effort on our behalf to go back and do that. I think those are going to be the big challenges. But right now, it's not been folks just saying, I don't want it. Mostly when people look at this, they go, what is this? Why do I need it? This seems weird and different. And then once you get out here and talk to everybody and say, it's not different, it's just bringing us up to where everybody else is, they typically go, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Can you hang around one more segment?
Absolutely.
All right, let's go ahead and take the break. When we come back, we'll talk about the water side of it because we've got water meters and also the latest on the ERCOT transition. We'll be right back. Chad Easty Show, KFYO. Chad Hasty Show, News Talk, KFYO. Thank you very much for tuning in. This portion of the show brought to you by my friends at Slide Plant Market on South Slide Road in FM 41, just south of Lubbock. In Slide, Texas, it's one of the nicest drives in Lubbock County if you don't want to go into town or you just don't want to shop at one of those big box stores. Because the big box stores, they don't care what they sell you. They just want to get your money and get you out of there. At the locally owned nursery, Slide Plant Market, you're going to get personal attention every single time from Mark Lee, the owner, who has over 30 years in the nursery business. Mark will even show you the best way to cultivate and care for your plants. It's where we go to pick up our plants. They also have great, if you have a garden, maybe you want to get some great vegetable plants going, tomato plants, jalapeno. Oh, man, he's got them all over at Slide Plant Market. Go by and visit with Mark today. He's open Monday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m., closed on Sundays. When you see Mark Lee, tell him the Chad Hasty Show said hello. And, of course, you can always give him a call for questions at 790-7314. That's 790-7314. Slide Plant Market at South Slide Road and FM 41 in Slide, Texas. We've got Matt Rose with LP&L in studio. And, Matt, we got a really good question here from a listener. He says, I had work done in the alley 3 weeks ago. With that work, they had to replace my meter. How do I know if it was replaced with a smart meter?
It's a good question. As a policy, we've said we're doing this. Basically, we're rolling out these meters in route cycles. So we took all of the current read cycles where during a given month they'd read, and then we expanded them out 12 months, and that's the process we're doing. But we've said if there is an instance where one of our technicians is out there doing work and they would ordinarily switch out the meter, go ahead and switch it out with an advanced meter and check it off the list. Because we also have folks that will call in on a regular basis and say, hey, can you come test my meter? And a lot of times they'll come pull the meter and test it. And so if we're out there in that situation and somebody's got hands on the meter, it's like, go ahead and flip that out. But as a customer, you can do one of two things for this person texting in. You can either go out there and take a look at it. It's going to look almost the same, but the metering technology we went with is from a company called Itron. And the brand is called OpenWay Riva, and it should say that on the face of the meter, so you can take a look and see. And if that's the case, then you've been switched out. Or you can always call 775-2509, ask that customer service rep if you've been switched out. They may have to say, let me have somebody call you back, because it may go back to the team that's doing the installs, and then they'll reach back out to you. But either way, that's how you configure.
Okay. How's the transition to ERCOT going?
Knock on wood, it's been going very well. The process that we're going through right now, obviously, back in March, we got our approvals from the Public Utility Commission, and all of the interested parties in the state signed on the bottom line. And so we've been working towards now basically the Certificate of Convenience and Necessity process, which is for each section of transmission line that has to be built to connect to our 3 different points of interconnect with the ERCOT grid. Each one of those sections has to go through an application process. And this past summer, we had a bunch of open meetings here in Lubbock and surrounding areas, where basically what you do is, from our end, we get with our partners and we show every single conceivable way that the transmission lines could be built from point A to point B. So, for example, from Abernathy, that Antelope station that you see off the interstate, to the north side of our system. So here are all the different routes. And then you go on the map, and every single person that owns a piece of land that's within a certain distance from a prospective line gets a letter and says, here's the process, here's your landowner bill of rights, and then here are public meetings that we're having where you can come give your comments. And we have to collect all of those comments, but either online or in person, and then we give them all the PUC, and then the PUC decides exactly where that line's going to go. So we've been going through the process. We've already agreed on one section of line, and we've got another section of line this week that we're going to agree on. So it's all progressing by timeline so that we can energize the lines by June of 2021.
All right. Matt Rose, always great information from you. We appreciate you taking time today.
Thank you for having me.
All right. When we come back, Scott Braddock, editor of Quorum Report, joins us to talk about the Texas legislative session.